We'll move on and talk about Everton, Pete. In terms of, from their perspective, of course, with this points deduction, we very briefly touched on it in just the last segment, but how angry should the Everton fans be? How disappointed should they be at the league? And really the fact that, like Paul was saying, they were the first up to the jury and they got served a sanction. And actually it turns out that it might have been too harsh.
Yeah, understandably, they're going to be angry. Their loss was a lot less than Nottingham Forest. I think Paul said 77% less, and they ended up getting a bigger penalty than Forest have. So how does that work out? You tell me. I don't know. Everton obviously were having a really good season, start of the season as well. Before they had the 10-point penalty deduction, obviously they rallied and had some good form under Sean Dyche to make sure they got those 10 points back pretty quickly. But then it's been a bit of a struggle since. And Sean Dyche has admitted the whole thing has been hanging over the club and the players as well. So you got a feel for Everton. They're still sort of in the dark now as well over this second charge, which we're hearing there's going to be a hearing next week. So we'll try and wait to see what the outcome of that is. And if they were to be handed another points deduction, it's going to put them right in the mire again and in that relegation zone probably. So for Everton, if they were to get 2 points deductions and after seeing Forest obviously exceed those losses by 35 million rather than Everton's 19, there definitely will be a lot of anger on Merseyside, and we've already seen that with the protests and everything else. And I just think they'll be ramped up even more if Everton do get handed another points deduction when we find the outcome of this hearing later this week.
Paul, for that first points deduction, do you actually think that Everton paid the price for supplying the incorrect information and taking that combative approach? I mean, Forest were praised, as we mentioned, for taking it on the chin quite well. Do you think actually, in hindsight, that going into this second charge, Everton will be a bit more hands-off? They'll take sort of they'll take a more relaxed approach to ensure that actually they don't get a punishment that could be as harsh as the first one.
Well, reading some of the stories and reading some of the stuff that came out of Everton's hearing, I think they pretty much represented themselves, didn't they? And it was a way that they didn't present themselves too well, let's say, I think, from what I can gather. And I think that didn't sit well with the powers that be. And I think they've had the experience of the first points deduction, which it is harsh. I mean, like we say, they're the first lambs to the slaughter, and they just got thrown 10 points, and then we'll think about it afterwards. And then it's the fans that you feel for, isn't it? I mean, the Evertonians, they've been through thin and thin with that club of late. I mean, they're thick and thin, but they've not seen many good times there. But the way that the managers seems to have rallied the team, the togetherness that he got, the results that they started to get, it does seem to have drifted away a bit. And he didn't let that first points deduction affect the team. But I think with this second one looming now, it's seemingly affecting the team. I mean, it's a team that struggled to score goals. Performance-wise, they always put in a performance, apart from last time out at home. I think that the fans were disappointed. But I think they've got a huge right to feel harshly done to because these rules have come in, because they were dealt with so quickly, so harshly. And, now that the dust settled a little bit, if you like, we know these rules are here. They are going to be altered. They're going to be changed, but they're here to stay. But the punishment will level itself out, and that the Forest one does seem a fairer punishment, if you like. And as Pete says, I don't think either that they'll appeal, because they run the risk of having more points taken off them if their appeal isn't successful, and they are found to be wasting time with an appeal, if you like. We're in uncharted territory, aren't we? We said weeks ago that we're going to be talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's not going away. And the fact that they are allowed to appeal, and that the appeal is going on past the end of the season, I mean, for me, it's a joke. It really is. I mean, the pressure on players. I mean, I've been in relegation battles. I've been relegated. And the pressure on different games it's incredible what players go through and what each game means. You'll play a game 1 week and you'll get 3 points, and you'll think it's a huge 3 points. And at the end of the season, there'll be a massive pitch invasion and you'll stay up and everything will be fantastic at the club. Yet a week later, you'll get a phone call saying you're in the Championship because of a points deduction. It's not good for anybody. It's not good. It's not healthy for, I'm looking at the league table from Palace down, anyone that's in that relegation fight, if you like. Palace, Brentford, Everton, Luton, Forest, Burnley and Sheffield United, you could say, is gone. But it has a psychological effect on all the teams entering their last round of fixtures, not knowing what's happening. The rules and regulations have to be regulated in a way that's fair and honest for all the teams, because this isn't just affecting Everton and Forest. This is affecting a lot of other teams that are around them as well. And we've already seen the financial knock-on that it would have about teams potentially going in the Championship that are already looking for financial recuperation for money that they've lost. It's a huge snowball that's gathering pace, getting bigger and bigger, and not going away. But nobody's getting it right.
Pete,
imagine if, as a player's perspective, you're under Sunderland, you're a week after the season's finished, you've stayed up, you've had all those celebrations on the field and everything, and then an appeal comes in and you've lost points. That would be unbelievable for a player to try and get his head around it, that instead of staying up, you're getting relegated. And that's potentially what could happen here in the Premier League, which, again, would make a whole mockery of the league.
And your missus has been out and spent your bonus for staying in the Premier League already, and it's gone and taken off. But it's, as funny as it sounds, there's a whole load of permutations there. I mean, it affects players, it affects lifestyles, financial rewards. There's huge rewards for players for staying in the Premier League. Teams that expect to be in a relegation battle in the contracts, in the players' bonus contracts, you get individual bonuses for staying in the Premier League, win bonuses and points bonuses for staying in the Premier League. So that will all be affected as well. I mean, this isn't about players' wages, and it's not about what players get bonus-wise. But there's so many different areas that this affects. The biggest one is the fans. It's, again, because fans will go to games not knowing what's enough and what's not enough, and it's just not honest. It's just not a level playing field.
Do you think this might be the most tense relegation battle? Not in terms of what's going on field, we can ignore those results. For teams actually that are going into this next 6 weeks, 2 months equivalent, do you think actually this could be the most, I would say, stressful period for those clubs that you mentioned, Paul? Do you think that could be the case?
I think it could have the opposite effect. You flip that around, because teams are not going to know. If you get beat at the weekend and you sat in the bottom three, you're almost kind of clinging on to the hope if Everton are out of the bottom three, or if Forest do appeal and they're not in the bottom three. If you lose at the weekend, you're kind of clinging on to a little bit of hope, thinking, well, it's all right. They're probably going to get points taken off them. If they have 4 points taken off them, then we're okay. It probably gives other teams a false sense of security and a false sense of hope that these points are going to come off. I mean, if Forest don't appeal, that's it, done. Everybody knows where they're at. But if Forest do appeal, then it goes past the end of the season. Everton, why can't that be dealt with at the same time that Forest's been dealt with in the same type of timescale? We don't know. That's way above our pay grade. People who decide that put whatever timescale they want on it. Seems the timescale for me is the real problem. It's a real issue, because the false sense of security, or the false environment that it creates for players. I mean, Rob Edwards said the other week he's got two tables in his dressing room. He's got one with a possible points deduction and one without, so his players know what they have to do, and that's him guessing what points teams are going to get deducted. I mean, it really is. It must be difficult for players and managers. It's, livelihoods, jobs, not just on the pitch or the management, but within football clubs depend on promotion and relegation. And it's you think about the backroom staff as well, the jobs that are at risk here with teams being relegated as well. The effect that it has on everybody at a football club, not just on the pitch. But it's the not knowing and the uncertainty that's the problem.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.